Hey guys, it's Adam from Lucid Pixel, and welcome to the Painter's Hollow. If you're new to this channel, the Painter's Hollow is a calm and gentle place for artists, free from distractions, where we can get lost in our creative thoughts together. And note, the Painter's Hollow isn't only for painters, it's for artists from every walk of life, from performers to musicians to writers to comedians, to illustrators. Because, regardless of which medium we use to communicate to our audience, we're all artists at the end of the day, aren't we? And of course, if you've been following my art talks for years, what the series used to be called then, welcome back. And I want to start today by reading a poll that I asked my YouTube community. It's a question that I asked them with 4 options, and people could pick the one that they felt they related to the most. And the question is, what is your most common worry when it comes to your art? The first option is, I feel like I'll never be good enough. There are too many better artists out there. The second option was, I'm too much of a perfectionist and I'm never satisfied. Option number 3 was, I have a really hard time motivating myself to get started. And the last one was, I have no idea what to draw. I can stare at a blank page all day and get absolutely nothing done. And what was very telling, although unsurprising, was that by a very large margin, and we're talking 1.8 thousand votes, so this is a very telling survey over a fairly large audience, 42% chose, I feel like I'll never be good enough. There are too many better artists out there. Of course, there are those outside of the box thinkers out there that said, what about the 5th option? All of the above. Congratulations for introducing that invisible option. And yes, I can relate to that as well. But it got me thinking, because one of the things that my Painter's Hollow videos are all about is digging deeper into the psychology of the artist. What are those thoughts that we all share? What are those things that we all have in common but forget to talk about, or don't think are important to talk about? I wanted to dig deeper into the root cause of why so many of us artists feel that way. And I think one of the most obvious overlying reasons is because art in and of itself is one of the most personally revealing endeavors, personally revealing professions. We lay ourselves bare, don't we? If you're a performer with a camera a foot away from your face, an actor, you have to be able to forget that camera and be. Find that moment inside of you and forget about the fact that somebody's staring right at the side of your head, and just be. As an illustrator, all of your technical strengths, technical weaknesses, all of your creative strengths and weaknesses are all there for all to see and judge. And that can be crippling, can't it? You're a musician, you might choke once in a while and screw up a riff. And hopefully you're with a band, or you're with a group of people who can cover up and pick up the slack for you. I even remember an instance where I did a dance choreography. It was a pro-am dance choreography based off of The Army of Darkness, to all of you fans of Ash from Housewares. She's a zombie, I'm Ash. And at the end of the choreography, or actually in the middle of the choreography, we ended up finding ourselves on the wrong sides of each other. And you can see in the choreography that my feet don't know which way to go, because we're no longer dancing together. And thankfully she had the speed of wit to change places, and we got back in line and she saved the choreography. But there it was, my mistake for everybody to see. It's recorded. But we finished and we got it done, and that mistake ended up being a happy memory, a memory of the challenge it was to perform in front of a live audience. And we do this every day as artists, don't we? You paste your stuff on Instagram or YouTube or Twitter or TikTok or wherever it is you're sharing your stuff, ArtStation, and best case scenario, it gets millions of likes because we're stars. Usually, we get a few. Half of those will be from friends and family because they love us and they want to support us, right? Worst case scenario, not many, maybe none. It gets ignored. And maybe one asshole decided to comment and say, well, your colors suck. You don't post your shit until you know what you're doing. And that can be devastating. That's kind of the equivalent of having one of those teachers that says, if we're going to be singing in the choir, just lip sync it. Don't sing, because your voice sounds kind of awful and you're ruining the show. Just pretend. You're a trumpet player. Just don't play that passage because it's an important piece and we don't want you screwing it up. That can be pretty devastating. We've all had to deal with assholes like that at conventions or in schools, haven't we? Yeah. We'll take that and amplify it 1,000-fold, and that's what social media can feel like. And I want to offer you some insight from an older person's perspective, not because of that whole annoying ageism crap, because I don't believe in ageism. I don't feel like I know better because I'm older. But what I do have insight into, which is just a product of time, is I saw the world before social media. So I can feel what changed in ways that if you grew up in a world where social media already existed and you don't have any basis of comparison, then it is what it is. So you don't necessarily know what's changed. You just know how you feel and you react emotionally to your reality. But my reality was forged before social media. So I don't look at social media today as the way life is. I see it as the way life changed. And I think that can be an important insight for you, because if it isn't for people like me who can share these thoughts with you, who can share that comparison with you, you might not even know there's a second option. I know there's many options, and I want to share those with you. I think where this starts is how, because we don't have a point of comparison, our basis for comparison is, in many ways, warped, particularly for a younger audience who grew up in it. Because you live in a world right now, you live in a social media environment where we can very easily indulge in over-curating our image. We can do our makeup, fix our clothes, clean our room, set up our perfect lighting, make sure our angles are perfectly set up, and practice and take 600 takes and decide to go with attempt 601 because that one came out the most perfect. So when you are used to over curating your image, your art, your voice, everything, when you get used to that, then what this can do is make trivial, minor flaws feel much bigger than they actually are, because you don't have anybody in your room looking over your shoulder seeing those 600 attempts, do you? Nobody needs to see that side of yourself. In fact, nobody needs to see you at all. You can just be somebody who just plays her music, and you just put your hands and the guitar in the frame, and all we hear is a disembodied voice singing to a beautiful instrument. We can hide that. And if that's how you wish to do it, you can still produce beautiful things and touch your audience. But you know, deep down inside, that there are sides of you that you're hiding. And if you want to hide yourself, by the way, I'm not judging you. I'm not saying you're wrong for doing so. I just want you to be mindful of that. Be aware that you are cultivating a psychology of fear of being seen for who you truly are, a fear of being known for who you feel you truly are. And that fear has a domino effect on everything else that you do. Not publicly, but personally. And it's that personal fear, it's that personal curation that can scare you from getting out and seeing people in person. It can create a social anxiety, understandably, because when you walk outside your house, you might feel terrified to bump into a friend at the grocery store, bump into one of your classmates at a grocery store, bump into somebody who knows you in social media at the grocery store or at the mall. You're terrified, and you hide from them because you don't want them to see you in a way that hasn't been curated perfectly. Hey, I've got 3 kids. I know all about that. So don't feel alone. You are a member of a very large community of people that all feel that way. Most of us do. As artists, however, as professionals, this poses a challenge and an obstacle that is not insurmountable. This isn't a permanent scar in your psychology. This isn't trauma you're dealing with. It's just a challenge. It's a challenge that you can avoid because you can auto-tune your image publicly as an artist. But as a professional, if you truly want to be seen and respected and admired, understand that over-curating yourself isn't only dramatically stunting your growth as an artist, it's slowing you down professionally. Because eventually, if you really want to be seen, if you really want to be appreciated sustainably, and if you want to truly feel appreciated, you have to understand that you want your audience to appreciate you for who you truly are. Because every time I get in front of that camera, I have everything set up perfectly, and I only share my 601st take, then, well, I can't translate that into real life. I can't walk into a film studio or a game studio. I can't make a public appearance on camera. I can't share what people really love, which was my works in progress, with you, if only I'm showing you as beautiful finished products. You can't make happy accidents. You have to hide those happy accidents, when in fact, the accidents is where all that lovely learning comes from, doesn't it? And people love to see that. I'm going to make a shout out to a fantastic YouTube channel. It's a second YouTube channel created by somebody who you might know because she's a member of the art community. You might know her from the channel Artbymadeleiine. Madeline spelt with 2 I's, by the way, if you're looking for it. It can be a little bit tricky to find. But a lot of you might not know, in fact, most of you might not know that she has a second channel that I listen to all the time. It's called My Chemical Imbalance. And at the time of this recording, I'm looking at her channel right now, she has exactly 21 subscribers. And usually her videos only get a small handful of views. Until today, of course, because I'm mentioning her, so I expect that number to shoot up quite a bit, because she's getting a shout out right now. But on this channel, and I've commented and listened to a lot of her videos, on this channel she just turns the camera on and she shares her thoughts. She kind of just hits record and shares her thoughts in arguably the most candid way imaginable. She just says it like it is. She doesn't give a shit what anybody's thinking. And she talks about what she's going through. Sometimes she talks herself to tears. Sometimes she makes silly jokes and takes herself sarcastically. But the reason I'm giving her a shout out today, I left a long comment on her most recent video, which is called Stop Wasting Energy Overthinking and People Pleasing. And First of all, the message she's sharing, the lesson she's sharing in this video is exceptionally valuable. In fact, I would argue that the lesson that she's sharing, what she's organically exposing just through thinking and talking herself through her thought process, is at the foundation of my channel. And it's at the foundation of why I tattooed the expression, the Stoic expression, temet noske, on my arm, which means know thyself, which is a quote I got from the Oracle in the movie The Matrix, in the original Matrix, because she has that plaque over her door that says, know thyself. In it, she talks about the experiences that she had in her life where she was constantly dealing with the stress of comparing herself to other people. And I'm sure this is something that you can very much relate to yourself, right? She was always comparing herself to other people, and this really messed with her sense of self-confidence to a certain point where she had to make this realization: no, it's not what other people think about me, that my sense of self-worth isn't dictated by how other people judge me, that I have to decide for myself what my values are, my morals are, what I believe in, what matters to me, and judge myself based off of my analysis, my values, my morals, my ethics. And to be able to look at herself in the mirror and say, am I a good person with good intention? That might sound very familiar hearing me say this on my channel, because this is something I've spoken about many times in many different ways. She's expressing this in her early 20s. Maybe she's like 21. I definitely wrote that long comment because I could see how valuable what she was sharing was, but because she's got this tiny audience and because she doesn't have that production behind her video like me with my mics and my lighting and my cameras and all that crap, that message could be lost to an audience looking to be entertained. But to an audience that wants to learn, she's teaching the greatest lesson any human being's ever going to learn. Most people don't have that level of insight or bravery to make that decision. It takes a crap load of confidence and soul searching and thoughtfulness and very often even therapy to be able to get to where she is. She's learning how to see herself through her own lens and see the world through her own lens. I think that's absolutely commendable, but that's still not the thing that I love the most about her channel, about her videos in general. And one of the things that keeps me coming back to her and what keeps grounding me watching her videos, if she can't think of something, if she can't think of that word, she'll just sit there and stare at the wall and think about it for 20 seconds straight and allow that video to just keep recording the side of her face. Or maybe she'll go online and she'll look something up on the internet and she'll tap away at the computer while the computer light's shining on her face, and she'll go, okay, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Okay, yeah. And then she'll continue where she left off. Or maybe she'll forget what she's talking about and she'll go, okay, screw it. And she'll just kind of go off on a tangent and then come back and go, oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about. I swear to God, I never have ever felt like I was ever watching a YouTube video feeling like I'm literally in the room with her, having a conversation with a family member, because she's just so her. A her that you can't take for granted is exceptionally difficult to do in front of a camera. It's exceptional. I mean, I've seen actors, professional actors, people, multi-millionaire actors like Tom Hanks and Willem Dafoe and all of these actors, share lectures with young aspiring performers, preaching that very lesson. I want you to repeat that line 800 times until you don't even hear the words anymore. You're just being. You are living that experience. Try it. It's not easy. And I'm watching Madeleiine just be so 1000% authentically. It is hypnotically therapeutic to watch a woman like that just be herself. I'm envious of her courage. And I think that, you know, you look at some young 20s woman, you know, just whatever, waking up in the morning in her hoodie that she probably wore for the third day in a row. And you just feel this incredible sense of relatability to somebody like that. And you look at that and you go, that to me kind of embodies what social media should be. I think that rawness, that humanity, that courage, that openness is what really heals, is where I feel I get the most growth from, and where I feel the most connection to the person that I'm listening to. There's something about the way people like Madeleiine really break that fourth wall for me and really make me feel like I'm there. And, you know, very often on my channel, one of the things that people say, one of the things they share that they appreciate about my videos is that it feels very personal. It feels personal because I'm being personal with you. And one of the members of my audience who is reacting to a video, one of the only, if not the only, Painter's Hollow, or back in the time it was called Art Talks, where it was scripted. And she said in the comment, I don't know if it's my autism talking, but I really had a hard time listening to you in this video. Something about it felt it was just hard for me to connect to you. That by me scripting, I'm reading words, I'm not feeling and expressing words as they come to me as I am right now. The pacing, the repeated words, the lack of perfect dialect, whatever, my vocabulary felt too clean. It felt too perfect. People aren't that perfect. Well, okay, there's one, Steven Zapata. He's perfect. He speaks better than I could write, for God's sakes, but I mean, he definitely is an anomaly, and if you use him as a point of comparison, well then, good luck feeling good about your speaking skills. But everybody in the world, except for Steven, I have to think for 14 minutes before I can produce a clear sentence and or speak very slowly like I am right now. And my videos that are generally a lot more upbeat and energetic and to the point, you can see the editing in that video. I can cut a 35-minute video down to 8 minutes through editing alone. I have learned through experience not to curate myself. And this was a lesson that I learned through art first, because art was my profession. What it meant to me to be a professional was that I couldn't do it hiding behind closed doors, because they would be the day I would have to exit my home and take a bus or a subway, or metros as they call them in Montreal, take a metro to work, walk into an office building with colleagues, sit next to them, turn my computer on, turn on my drawing display, and draw in front of all of my colleagues while people walked around and chatted. And my boss would come and sit down with me and let me know what he would like me to produce, and I would work on it, and I would thumbnail, and he would be passing by my desk intermittently and asking me how things are going. And he could see on my page that I'd have 15, 20, 30 rough drawings, and I would show him, here's 3 that I'm feeling confident with. What do you think? And what you might not have experienced, particularly if you're working with more experienced directors, is that your director might look at the ones on that more curated page, but then she might look back over at your roughs and say, actually, I think I prefer where you were in that second rough. I like that one actually, because there's a little bit of a looseness. I like the dynamic in that body. These ones feel a little bit too polished. I recommend going and checking those ones out. In fact, to mirror that exact sentiment, when I was invited to judge the art contest on DPS, on Hardy Fowler's DPS art contest for his community on his Discord channel, a ton of fun. One of the very common comments I made when I was judging my favorites, all of the artists had shown works in progress, and then they presented the finals. They showed the works in progress and then the finals, and they had these very elaborate PDFs, presentations, where they were showing all of their work. And one of the most common comments I made on almost every one of the teams, there were 3 teams, was, this one wins for my favorite character, this one wins for my favorite creature, this one wins for my favorite prop, but they're not my favorites. I had to pick a favorite based off of your finals, but my favorites were in the roughs category. This one's looser, this one's dynamic, this one has more spontaneity, this one has confident, thick brush strokes that I find have a nice energy to it, etc. I did not necessarily like the curated ones. I felt that there was a more impulsive, spontaneous expression when that artist wasn't trying to be perfect. Isn't that telling? And my feelings are, as you hear me express this, you're probably nodding along with me too, aren't you? Isn't it? I reference other artists who tend to have a very, very efficient, yet very loose, yet deceptively polished look to their work. The poster boy of that being, of course, Anthony Jones, who I talk about all the time because our styles are very similar. I learn from him a lot. Why do I name drop Anthony Jones all the time? Because to me, one of his greatest abilities, and one of the reasons why, I talk about Bobby Rebholz all the time, who I just published a podcast we did together yesterday, as of the date of me recording this audio. He too has that same quality. He doesn't hide from his imperfections. He works, he integrates and blends imperfections into his work. They both do. Those brushstrokes those shapes are not perfect. They're just laying down a foundation that the artist builds upon. And because there's no backpedaling, they're forward pedaling much faster. Because there's less backpedaling, they're forced to be more confident with the forward pedaling. They just draw forward through that. So they allow those spontaneous thoughts to stay on the page, and they learn from their quote-unquote mistakes, which I say very, very non-committally, because they're not mistakes. They're marks. They're indications that these rock climbers have been there before. They've left their mark on the side of the mountain. They've left a little ribbon there with that brush stroke that they use as a grip to move forward through their work. This connects you to the humanity of your expression. It's this type of mentality that allows you to embrace who you are. It's not easy though, man. Madeleiine could have very easily just hit pause. She could have gone back, ran her video through an editing software. Notice that when you're in the presence of people that you truly care about and you trust, you put your guard down. You put your feet up. You relax, you lean forward, you make yourself comfortable. You don't sit there prim and proper. And that's where the real you resides. As an artist, there's a side of that part of your personality that you want to just let out. Let it out. Now, of course, we're artists. We do want to be presentable. We do want to be professional. But an overly curated professional is sterile. You have to find that delicate balance between the two. And before you can truly be the most presentable version of yourself, there's a side of you that has to learn how to embrace those imperfections. Embrace who you are. Be yourself. We look at women like Madeleiine as a role model. We don't look at women like Madeleiine as somebody who needs to fix her shirt. No, because she's not a talk show. She's a person. And I went there to see a person and have a human experience. I wanted to learn a real valuable, lifelong lesson from a fellow human being. And that's where I find it. That's where the really valuable stuff happens. Wouldn't you agree? Be conscious, be mindful of the fact that an over-curated reality is a source of anxiety. An over-curated reality is and can be a place that holds you back. It keeps you being fearful. And if you find that the environment that you're in forces you to be overly curated, forces you by judgment, by ostracism, by punishment, when you get bad marks for getting the wrong answer, when you have to go through summer school for failing that course, that's bad teaching. That's teaching people to fear mistakes. Why should you be grading people for being imperfect? Why should somebody have to look at that letter, that F, that number, that failing grade because they didn't get it right? Is that an indication of that person's laziness, ineptitude, neurological diversity? What is it? What exactly is that number? What is that letter supposed to represent? It's telling you that you're different. It's telling you that Rob, telling you that Tanya, telling you that Cliff, they all have it figured out. They can follow suit. You can't. They are academically more successful than you are. They can do their homework more efficiently than you do. They have less distractions at home. They have a more balanced diet. Fuck that. What Madeleine is teaching us is you need to know yourself. You need to find that environment that doesn't make you feel ashamed for being imperfect, so that when you do make a mistake, quote unquote, that you can look at it confidently. You can look at it like a professional and say, yeah, that line's crooked. I was going too fast. These values are starting to get too close to each other. My value groups are starting to get all muddied together and it's kind of ruining my image. Okay. Try to be a little bit more subtle with that shape. Try to be a little bit more subtle with that edge. Make sure that the grays, the mids, the highs, and the lows are distinguishable so that my image reads better. Those colors are too saturated. Let's dial it back a bit. You don't scrap the image, pretend it never happened, and start over from scratch. You look at that thing, you judge your artistic decision objectively and learn from it. You know, you look at a comedian, you look at somebody like, I don't know, like Chris Rock or Louis C.K. or any of these different comedians, Jerry Seinfeld, whatever. And the greatest gift they have as comic artists is their ability to do exactly what an artist does, what an actor does, just be. You know, Louis C.K. has practiced and scripted and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed that joke a million times. A lot of people ask, how the hell do comedians have the ability to keep a straight face with telling their jokes? Because it's far from funny by the time they tell the joke. They've told it a million times. That delivery is immaculate. But it's not immaculately perfect. It's immaculately imperfect. That's the secret. Where Louis C.K. will kind of smirk and laugh and throw in a little word in there that just kind of ties it all together, that humanizes that experience. He needed to live that moment and then record that moment and reread and rewatch that moment and re-record it and do it over and over again until it felt bang on authentic. And it's that authenticity that makes people feel like he's talking to them, like he's having a personal conversation with them. He needed to be able to record those imperfections and integrate those imperfections in his dialogue into it. That's the art. Isn't it starting to sink in? You starting to see what I'm talking about here? That's what makes him so relatable. But if he walks in and his delivery is clean, sterile, nobody's going to laugh because we're just listening to meh. We're just listening to meh. We're not feeling it. One of my favorite art lessons too is at the early days of Harry Connick Jr.'s judging in America's Got Talent. Is America's Got Talent? I can't remember. Yeah, it's America's Got Talent. This was before he was officially brought on as a judge. Harry Connick Jr. being one of my personal favorite musicians of all time because he's awesome and because he's from my birthplace, New Orleans, for all of you who aren't aware of that, although I was raised in Canada, so I'm a Canadian first and foremost, of course, but I was born in Nolens, Louisiana, and I remember one episode where he was helping to tutor a singer, and he was on his piano, and the girl was singing. She had a beautiful voice, and he's listening to her, and she's singing the song, and she's doing all that dope Ariana Grande shit. You know, she's got all that the fancy flair. She's doing some flexing, right? And she's in it, and she's singing, and the song is called My Funny Valentine. And the lyrics of the song are, My Funny Valentine, your looks are less than Greek, right? And she's singing it with all this kind of cool flair to it. And Harry Connick Jr. stops playing, and he looks at her and he goes, what are you doing? And she kind of looks at him embarrassed and says, what do you mean? What am I doing? And he goes, what are you doing? She goes, I don't know. What am I doing? And he goes, do you know what the song is about? And she says, My Funny Valentine, it's about Valentine's. He goes, no. Listen to the lyrics. Do you know what the lyrics mean? And she goes, not sure. She goes, he says, do you know what the words, your looks are less than Greek, do you know what that means? She goes, that you're not good looking? Exactly. It means you're ugly. My Funny Valentine, your looks are less than Greek. There's a mistake I'm going to leave into my audio. Enjoy that one. Your looks are less than Greek, right? Basically what the message is saying is, you're not perfect. I love you for who you are. He says to her, I want you to sing that. And when you're singing that, you have to sing it from the perspective of a woman or a man or anybody singing to anybody, because it's a love song. It's for anybody to anybody. And you're in love with somebody and you're expressing to them, you look perfect the way you are. Your hair's all over the place. Your makeup you don't have any makeup on. But that to me is the most beautiful thing in the world. I don't want you to live up to the ideal of beauty. You define the ideal of beauty to me. You are my definition of beauty in the form that you demonstrate to me. Isn't that a much more beautiful message than, wow, your makeup looks great? We all love the compliment, but we're also looking for somebody who we can spend our life with, somebody who we can be ourselves with, somebody who's not just our lover, but somebody who we trust with anything and everything, people who are going to see us at our most vulnerable. You want to love that person and raise a family with them, well, you're going to see them in their most humane way, in their most vulnerable way. Is that the person you love? Well, welcome to being an artist. That comedian, that Dave Chappelle, needs to sit down in front of his audience and 1000% speak with authenticity. And not only does he have to speak with authenticity, he might have to do it 80 times in a row as he tours around the world to present that show. He has to get himself back into that zone. That's not easy, is it? But the artist learns how to not try to be perfect. they understand that imperfection is the tool. That imperfection, embracing that moment, that feeling, that conduit, that prop, that line that brings them back into character. Comedians are the artist of humanity, in my opinion. They say the things, the Jon Stewarts, who say those things that we're all thinking, but we're all too afraid to say aloud. And don't we admire them? Aren't comedians some of the most important members of societies nowadays? All of these two-faced, superficial, over-curated, completely fake politicians with their suits and ties, their dialect, their diplomacy, their handshakes, their armored vehicles, and their corruption. And then comedians come in and say the thing that we all want to say, fearlessly. There's a good chance that if you were raised in a world that put too much emphasis on performance, too much emphasis on fitting in performatively with your colleagues, with your peers, with your school, with your job, with your church, with your whatever, that behavior, that mindset ended up becoming constant. It influenced you at a very foundational level, which is something that school does, unless you go to one of those much more forward-thinking, much more humanitarian schools, which are, I would argue, exceedingly rare, if not non-existent. Yes, it's important to practice. Yes, it's important to learn the value of hard work, but I don't see any value in curating and nurturing a punitive perspective on performance. Punitive meaning punishment-based. And if you find yourself judging yourself harshly, if you find yourself punishing yourself emotionally because that's what you were raised to do, you end up becoming the villain to your own story, don't you? Through pure behavioral conditioning. Then recognize that. Recognize that the only one expecting you to be perfect when all of those influences are gone is you. And you have my permission to turn that switch off. And when you do, and you can start moving forward, creating a forward momentum with your artwork, with your life decisions, when you can truly be yourself and embrace yourself and discover and judge the world intrinsically, meaning from within, not from external forces, by judging forces, by the number of likes that you get, by the amount of accolades and rewards and positive comments on your posts. If you're trying to make a name for yourself in the lack of engagement or likes on your art or the things that you share depresses you, then effective immediately stop being depressed about it. Those likes have nothing to do with the value of your message. The value of Madeleine's message to me has nothing to do with the number of subscribers or comments, because I was the 4th person to view that video, and I was the first person to comment on it, and I'm her 10th sub. She's made 4 subs since. And to me, she has shared one of the most valuable videos I've ever heard, particularly coming from somebody who, unlike myself, made some of the most important life discoveries in only a few decades of being on this planet, and it took me almost 40 to do the same. And that decision, that discovery, that realization led to some of the most meaningful, impactful, and transformative decisions I've ever made in my life. In fact, I would argue I wouldn't be here talking to you today if it wasn't for the lesson that Madeleine shared in that video. And that's the reason why I got it tattooed on my arm. because it's something I remind myself of every single day. And it is that lesson that I see in other people that make them shine, that make them seen, that make them valuable. No matter how much makeup they're wearing, no matter how many banger works of art they've done, talent just requires time and patience, but most of all, confidence. And that's where it starts. With that said, I love you all with all my heart. And happy painting. Take care.